Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for jumping in here just a few minutes late. We're going to let everybody get joined in here, and we'll get started in about a minute. All right, it looks like people are still coming in, but we'll go ahead and get started. Wanted to thank everybody for joining us for our second part to the Movicon webinar series that we're having hosting with CB Pacific and Simtech, along with us here in TMMI. We cover. Uh-oh. Well, we'll persevere here. Is there a echo, Kelly?
There is, yeah, just a slight one. Looks like something might have kicked on for you there.
Don't know what that is.
Oh, looks like it went away, so I think we're good.
All right.
Good timing anyhow. There's a few more people kicking in here, so.
All right, well, it's a good thing I don't talk very much during this. So want to move to the next slide. Just a quick background. The three companies you see here, CB Pacific, Simtech, and TMMI, are all owned by the same parent company, the Flow Control Group. We share the Emerson product line and share resources across the variety of territories that we support. And this is an example of one of those webinars where we'd like to get some attention and some sight to the different options and functionality of the Movicon software. It's new to Emerson, but not new product. It's been around and developed for a long time, and Scott from Emerson will jump into some of those details here with us today. We'll do a little bit of an overview of Movicon at its base, but then we'll dive deeper into the Pro.Lean portion of it, and Kelly Sattel, one of the TMMI's application engineers, will dive a little bit deeper into how easy those functionality is easy to use. Next slide. For those of you that are joining us for the second time, you're 2/3 of the way there for a free license worth over 14K of Movicon software. This isn't a license for you to just use as a development tool. This is a license for you to be able to redistribute on your first project, your next project, however you see fit to use that license. It is 100% redistributable. It covers all of the features and functions that you saw a couple weeks ago. It covers what you get access to and we'll see today, as well as the Pro Energy stuff that we'll see in a couple weeks. So really excited for everybody to join us today. If you do have questions, please feel free to throw them in the Q&A section. We'll be monitoring those, and we'll either try and type an answer back, or we'll interrupt and get it vocalized across to everyone. You all are on mute, so communicating either through the chat window or the Q&A windows are the best possibilities for us. So before I hand it over to Scott, we're going to jump into our first poll question just to get a little idea of some of the interest. There's 2 or 3 of those throughout the presentation today, but why don't we go ahead and start with that poll question. There we go. So how soon is the next HMI project that is open spec or will have an evaluation of capabilities on what software platform you could use? We'll give everybody a minute to answer that, and we'll take a look at the results. While we're waiting for that, I'll introduce Scott again. He's joining us from the Emerson team. He's part of the Movicon product group, very well versed in all the platforms, and he'll give us a great introduction to Movicon, as well as talk specifically about the Pro.Lean portion. And then Kelly Sattel will dive a little bit deeper into the Pro.Lean demo.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and thanks everyone for joining. We'll just let the poll finish up here, and then I'll start it.
All right, that looks good. So yeah, if those people that have projects in the next 1 to 2 months, if there's anything follow up that intrigues you from these, please feel free to reach out, and happy to dive a little bit deeper and help you with those projects. So that's great information to have. I'm going to go ahead and go on mute in case those echoing gremlins are from my computer. So take it away, Scott.
Okay, we'll see if they come back. Yeah, so thanks again. And yeah, today we're going to be focusing a little bit more on Pro.Lean, but just a quick, we'll do a quick overview again on Movicon.next. Just a little bit of history. Movicon has been around for over 30 years. The product's been developed really from the beginning of when we started using computers and you know, SCADA software in for automation. So product has a really long history. The development team has a ton of experience, you know, purely focused on SCADA and HMI. So so that brings us to today. We're talking about Movicon Next and Pro.Lean, the module that sits on top of Movicon Next for measuring productivity, OEE, and KPIs related to you know, plant and equipment efficiencies. Okay, so in general, Movicon.next uses open technologies like SQL Server, Microsoft.NET framework, and is a rapid development environment for, you know, drag and drop creation of, you know, HMI and SCADA type applications. So I'll just jump over into the ecosystem here. So Movicon Next really brings us all the way from the you know, product or PLC and field device connectivity with Connext. So this is a entry-level communication and protocol gateway product. So you can easily gather, you know, tag data and tag values from PLCs and field devices into the product, and then expose that to other systems, other software, other applications through OPC UA. So Connext is a, you know, very easy to use connectivity tool. There's approximately 40 drivers, 40 native drivers included in that product. You're going to find all your mainstream PLC drivers, a lot of the common field bus drivers, and then even some newer IIoT and building automation drivers in that product. So from Connext, we move up into Movicon Web HMI. These are applications that can be deployed on very lightweight embedded devices, edge devices based on Windows or Linux. When you deploy a Movicon Web HMI, it's not just let's say a web, you know, the web browser, the client. It's also the IO server. So the team has been able to create, you know, the ability to port the drivers and graphics and everything, you know, to Linux and other, you know, embedded devices. And you're actually deploying a complete project using Web HMI. So it's again, a very lightweight embedded solution, you know, for HMI and distributed application. From there, we move up to Movicon Next. This is the full-blown SCADA and HMI product. It includes everything that you can do in Connext and Web HMI, but also extends some capabilities for additional, you know, scripting, There's a reporting tool, alarm dispatching, data logging in Historian, and some other advanced features. Just one thing to note, you can, you know, start a project with the Connext, you know, and Connext, and actually reuse that project in the Movicon Next. So, for example, one start off with a simple connectivity project and you want to eventually add graphics and other capabilities, you can simply open up that project in the full-blown Movicon Next editor and add anything you need to without losing any of the work you've done previously. So everything is interconnected and works seamlessly together. So from Movicon Next, we've got a couple of enterprise type modules, Pro Energy and Pro.Lean. Pro Energy is for monitoring utilities, water, oil, gas, could be electricity. Basically, there's some wizard that you step through and input data, maybe your peak times, off peak time, what your costs are for your different utilities, and the wizard outputs the screens, the reports, data loggers, and everything that's needed inside of the Movicon Next project without you having to do really anything other than step through the wizard. So it's a very automated process and gives you very powerful application in a very little time. And the same is basically same is true for Pro.Lean, with the exception that for OEE and productivity monitoring. So we can apply this to a single machine. It can apply to a line. It can be applied to an entire plant. Basically, we again step through a wizard that you input your shift patterns, different downtime reasons you might have for the process, what your product rates are, and at the end the wizard outputs the screens and again everything that's necessary inside the Movicon Next project. So those are two modules that are available for Movicon Next. Off to the side here in the front, we've got also the web client. The web client is a little bit different than Web HMI. This gives you the client, a remote connectivity to the Movicon Next application through a web browser, really any web browser, and also with purpose-built apps for iOS, Android, and Windows devices. So you can connect, to your Movicon server with this, different glass, web browsers or the apps, and see all the visualizations you've created. With the full-blown web client, you can run reports, you can create dashboards to view data, and do some other enhanced capabilities there. And then off to the other side here in the back, we've got augmented reality. So this uses, again, some of the core functionality of Movicon Next, but allows you to visualize the application in different ways through wearable devices, and then also using like cognitive recognition. You can build a system that's able to recognize different devices, could be sensors, could be motors. The system can recognize those devices and actually overlay screens that would be able to control that or show you data through that module. So these are all part of the ecosystem. Again, that's all brought to you through Movicon Next, and it's a very very small footprint, powerful software that includes all the capabilities I've talked about here. A little bit on the Pro.Lean architecture. So we've got again with Movicon Next built around the OPC UA framework. We've got our typical back-end components like the IO data server, which is managing the drivers and connectivity to the databases and so on. And then through the built-in functionality of Movicon Next, the data loggers and historians record data on in Microsoft SQL Server. And you can see off to the side, we've got our plugins here, or I'm sorry, on the top here, we've got our plugins. So one of the plugins is Pro.Lean, which again is what we're talking about today. Pro.Lean uses these underlying capabilities in Movicon Next to calculate, record, and finalize data that can be used for production analysis, real-time display of your OEE KPIs, downtime, and so on. And then through the wizard, we also generate some reports that are built in. So again, there's no need for any engineer to create and manage the reports. They're all done automatically through the tool. So again, Pro.Lean's utilizing the underlying Movicon Next technology. It's really just an automation tool for creating these components for your project. So there's a question on whether it supports other databases. So for the core Pro.Lean functionality, it uses Microsoft SQL Server or SQL Express to do all the calculations. There's some stored procedures and some other things that are inserted in the SQL database that it relies on for Pro.Lean. However, you can use Movicon Next with other databases like MySQL, Oracle, Azure, Postgres, and so on. So the software itself isn't limited to just Microsoft SQL Server. However, we do use that platform and that database for Pro.Lean. So you can kind of get an overview here of where Pro.Lean could live in your system. Basically, you can have your SCADA HMI server or system. Could be an HMI panel PC, could be a desktop PC, or it could be a server in an IT rack. Basically connecting to all the different equipment, PLCs, field devices, could be some robots or something, collecting that data, storing data into the database, and then the Pro.Lean really sits on top and periodically calculates the production, the production analysis, and publishes that data to the SQL database. So what you get is anywhere from 5-second to 30-second update on the system, and there's some screens that are built in that you can actually visualize that and see your productivity and KPIs in real time. Okay, so I think that brings us to poll question number 2, if we want to put that up, and then I'll continue after we wrap that up.
There we go. Poll question number 2. Are you or your clients requesting KPIs, downtime, or OEE metrics on existing machines or production lines? So either new or upcoming projects, or a project that you're interested in. I also want to say, while I have your attention, we will post, I think maybe you've received it in an email follow-up from our first one. We have a resources page that has a lot of links to the previous slides, as well as some of the help and the download files for Movicon. We'll make sure we post that so everyone has access to that as well here in a little bit. All right, so yeah, seems like quite often then, more than 50% for a majority of you. That's great. Thank you for that feedback.
Great. Well then, yeah, if some of you have obviously put OEE and production analysis type functionality into your applications, you probably realize it's not always the easiest thing to do, and especially to make it a repeatable process. So hopefully you'll see the, the value in Pro.Lean and really being able to template the creation of, that type of functionality right into your application. Again, just with, filling out some forms and completing the wizard. Kelly's going to show that a little bit later, but yeah, so some of the, the needs around Pro.Lean are to increase efficiency in the plant, of course. Pro.Lean helps do this by giving you real-time KPIs and OEE value right on the screens that you have in the plant, and could be through web client. Somebody could view it remotely in the office, or you can actually put them up on large screens out in the plant or the shop floor. We're trying to reduce downtime, of course, improve quality through recording scrap and scrap reasons, quality metrics, and so on. Increase productivity and give you some traceability on your products that are being produced. Okay, I think with that, we're going to just jump right over into a little demo on Movicon next, and show some of the capabilities here. So again, there's going to be a link posted a little bit later where you can go and download Movicon next. Again, it's a single download, a small footprint that gives you all the capabilities I'm showing you today. With that download, you actually get several Movicon Next projects that are already pre-made and built, and you can actually just run them in the evaluation mode and see the functionality. And you can also, dissect them if you want, and kind of see how things are put together under the hood if you care to do that. Besides the demo projects like the one I'm going to show you right now, there's also some example projects that will show you how to do animations and commands and use dialog boxes and parameter files and so on. So there's some really useful examples. So we're going to just dive in, take a look at some of the graphics here. So Movicon Next uses Windows Presentation Foundation. It's part of the .NET framework to give you a really rich 2D and 3D graphic experience with all the objects that you see here being built into our symbol library. So we have a unique symbol library. It's 100% managed by the development team and our own internal graphic artists. So you won't see these graphics and symbols inside of other software packages because it's not a common a common symbol library amongst many other software companies. So all the graphics and animations you see on the screen here are being done inside of Movicon. There's various tanks and pumps and pipes that you can animate with colors. We've got some movement animation happening here through the different machinery, filling and packaging, labeling, and so on. There's a library of built-in gauges and other easy-to-read objects that give your operators, just kind of ease of mind and something simple to look at and remember what those values should be. So again, these are all built into the symbol library in the toolbox. Here we've got a kind of an overview of a filling machine and a capper being done. There's some animation being done for fill and some XY animation, color animation, and so on. If we move on to the next screen here, we've got a 3D model. So in Movicon Next, you actually have the ability to import 3D objects into the software. And once the object is imported, typically through XAML, you can actually manipulate the object in the development environment, but also in the runtime. So I'm simply just clicking on the object and moving my mouse around, but you can actually create pre-made views. And you can call these views through buttons. You could call them through events in the system. So for example, let's say this motor had a fault in the system and signaled an alarm. When that event happens, you can actually have the 3D object rotate to highlight maybe that area, and then you could animate the object within. So what you're seeing on the screen right now isn't a video file or anything like that. It's an actual 3D object, and through the animations, through the animation builder, we're actually able to do animations like the coloring here, the rotation, and also the vertical movement here on the capping machine. You also find a library of various analytic objects. So doing, trending, data analysis, comparative data. There's a whole library of different objects for, visualizing the data that you're recording, either historically or real time. And these tools all have, different capabilities. Some you're able to export data from, some are, kind of view only, and so on. And then we've got just, an overview here of a OEE type application, OEE type screen, where we've got a dashboard with our OEE and our KPIs, availability, performance, and quality. I'll jump over to a maintenance screen. Some of the other built-in functionality is in Movicon is the ability to enable statistical data on your tags. So if you have, for example, a digital tag, it could be maybe the motor status running or off. If you enable statistical data, it'll actually keep track of the motor's total time on for the day, the week, the month, and the life of that motor. So you can use some of those statistics for maybe performing maintenance, sending alerts when we hit a certain number of hours, and alerting maybe a maintenance technician that there needs to be some service done to that particular device. So there's various objects in the software to display that kind of data and make it easy to interact with. Again, some more gauges. These are again out of the built right into the toolbox and symbol library. So this is an out of a box kind of screen. You don't have to really customize or build any of this from scratch. It's all built there. So there's in Movicon Next, you've got complete alarm management and historical alarm capabilities. So what we're looking at here is a real-time alarm screen. You can completely customize the priority, the severity, the blinking colors, if you want blinking to even occur, and so on. And you can do that all in the configuration of the actual alarms. So here we can see there's various alarms. Some have been acknowledged, some aren't. Some are unacknowledged as well. And then through a built-in report designer, we're able to actually create reports that can be visualized, directly in the runtime. You could actually run these reports from a web client, or you could schedule a report using the built-in scheduling feature to have the report, send out at the end of the day. Maybe at every Monday morning, you want a report of last week's productivity. You can use the built-in report designer for doing, some of the built-in features to do that functionality. Just jump out and look at a couple other types of applications here. We've got a demo of a process system, in this case, a brewery, where we can see we've got some light recipe management. Movicon Next has a recipe management module in it that you can actually create recipes. It could be recipes for really any kind of process. It could be maybe just even a configuration type recipe where you want to save values to a database that you want to recall later at another point in time, say even for a building automation system or something where you need like summer, winter, fall and spring settings. Or in this case, we're using a recipe in the traditional way of pulling up the different ingredients and maybe some different time settings for a recipe. And then we can save those or load them to the PLC. So the software actually manages, the connection of those and activating, recipes and deploying them to a PLC. We can see another screen with built-in objects. Again, you can see that there's a vast difference. If you wanted to build screens that were more isometric versus something more flat like this, you have that ability because there's a huge library of objects. You'll see some of the objects in the editor are static. Static objects. Some have animation built in. So, for example, this agitator could have some animation where it looks like it's rotating. Here we've got some heat type animation that's happening. Again, some of those are built in and some could be customized, by the designer. A couple other analysis type tools, pie charts, area graphs, and of course trend and line charts. Okay, just to show you a couple more screens. Here we've got a utility type application where we're generating power and displaying, the flow of power and graphing some of the results. There's some built-in objects for switch gears and transformers. Again, that have some have automatic animation built in, and you can simply attach a tag to them, and they'll do what you want. Some other functionality that's built in. We have some flyout screens here. So if you're on a touch screen, the software supports touch manipulation. So you can zoom into screens, you can zoom into objects. As you zoom into objects, you can show more detail. So this is something that can be really useful if you're wanting to show an overview of a process, and maybe without leaving the screen, the operator could zoom in to an object and actually see more information about it. These flyout screens, you can actually use a mouse or just by swiping up or down on the screen. You can these flyout screens will appear where you can maybe embed some alarm data, maybe some trend data or something else on the application. So they can be really useful for keeping the operator, the user on the same screen and giving them additional capabilities without having to navigate or go to another screen. A couple other features just to mention quickly before we get into the Pro.Lean part of the demo. Some of the functionality we don't show in this demo is the alarm notification. So Movicon Next has a built-in alarm dispatcher that has several plugins. So you can send alerts out through email, through SMS, even a voice over IP call out system based on alarms and events. So if you had an alarm come up in the system, you can configure that alarm to be sent through one of those modules, and somebody could receive a text message on their phone, maybe an email, or even a call, and enunciate that alarm and alert them of the condition. So just one other thing to mention. I think with that, do we want to take a look at the Pro.Lean screens now?
Sure. Yeah, and appreciate you mentioning all of those various different options, configurations, and that like there, Scott, as I bring my screen up here. So I'll go ahead and show my screen. Shameless plug for you guys, because I am one of the instructors for the Movicon software training that you may have on with you. We do in those courses highlight how to set up, for example, that alarm dispatcher and do emails out to in that course. We do 3D animation. So just a plug to make sure to check our Team MI, SimTech, CB Pacific websites to sign up for those trainings. And let's see, you should be seeing my screen now, hopefully, I think.
Yeah, it's just coming through. Actually, before you dive into this real
Yeah.
quick, I think we have one more poll question.
Oh,
Jennifer,
sure.
if you don't mind popping that up. This one's geared towards a little bit more of mobile devices or carrying tablets around in your facility to be able to see some of that machine data. And curious if that's a platform that people are interested in starting to use more and more. And give everybody a quick minute to answer that. I did populate, put a link to our resources page. You should be able to find links to the training that Kelly was just talking about, as well as links to the Movicon help files, the download of the demos that Scott was just going through. All of those are available through that tiny URL link that I provided. So please feel free to use that or share that with your coworkers. So what did everybody say about this final poll question? Oh, okay. So not as often as I would have thought, but yeah, a little bit more towards the upper half. So
Yeah.
Good. Thanks for everybody for responding, and take it away, Kelly.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. So, as you do have opportunity or as that need grows, that's obviously built in for the notification. Another built-in component as a optional package that you can get for the Movicon.next software is the Pro.Lean component. We will discuss and describe in our next session the Pro.Energy component that you could add in as well. But we'll focus on the Pro.Lean software wizard and what that buys you, what it helps you to commission very quickly. And it's essentially your KPI and OEE strategy that would enable you to very quickly take a process. So for example, I have a process that is a manufacturing system consistent of 2 lines. In this case, I've got line 1 and line 2, right? With various different parameters coming in. So I can display, whole overview. I can go look at my line 1, line 2. So pretty standard, very similar to what you maybe saw in some of Scott's systems or screens, in that, you have a process of some sort that you're visualizing. So that all should, look very similar to what Scott was presenting. It will look similar to perhaps what you're doing with your customers. The system and setup that you would typically do from a SCADA or HMI perspective. What is unique in this particular application, and I'll show you how I set it up, is this Pro.Lean section. So, the plant, the line 1 and line 2 are pretty standard. That would be, for example, something that maybe you had set up with your customers already. And let's say they're going down the line and have now realized, or perhaps they're fortunate enough to understand the relevance of the KPI and OEE importance of their system up front. So what you may choose to do is to implement this Pro.Lean section. And the neat part about it is, if you have an existing project, which I'll show you, you essentially take and open up the wizard to build out. Well, this Pro.Lean section, as I will show you how to set up, actually would post up and develop for you automatically these OEE and KPI visualization screens for you. So in my case, I have a couple of different components that I'm looking at. I could certainly add to this. So far I've added in my machine 1 filler, my machine 2 wrapper. I could change over to that, and you're displaying your various different live data in terms of, availability, for example, your quality, your performance for each one of these components that you're interested in. So again, this list could grow. In addition to live data, we also automatically serve up, again, just through a simple wizard where you add in the components you're interested in looking at for live data. We also can do productivity display and information as it pertains to each day. Maybe you want the full, this entire week as it's occurred, or even, the last 60 days or month strategies, so that you could look back and quickly take a look at the response for, each of your components. And again, we can switch back and forth between the components that we're interested in, and that data is going to display whether in live data or productivity. If you then look over to your downtime tab over here, again, these are all screens that are automatically served up when I simply walk through the wizard to set these up. So I'll show you that in just a moment. So if I go over to my downtime tab over here, this actually will help me to understand, again, from, all the way from the last hour to an individual day, let's say, or half a day or a shift, all the way up to, a last week's worth of downtime information to help me understand the detailing, again, for each of the equipment pieces that I may be looking at, right? So I can click on, the various different detailing I'm interested in. And again, this is just a visualization that I could access on my screens and be posting out for people to access at any time. We also allow for reporting. And again, these reports are automatically served up to you when you implement the Pro.Lean component. So for example, we have a summary report, we've got a lot detail report, a shift detail report, lot report and shift comparison reports. These are all pre-done for you. You could, in fact, certainly utilize, this particular view screen to pull up and to display the report. The neat part about this reporting tool is right now I haven't selected what it is I want to look at. I want to look at, for example, my machine one filler as it pertains to a particular lot or a particular item. And then I submit that to then display or create that report on the fly. The neat part about this is from here, I can then elect to print this off, go take this over, to my management team, maybe a summary council that is looking at this. I can also simply save this off as a report. I can also automate this. Okay, so aside from coming in here and getting this report and manually selecting which reports it is I want to look at and serve up the data and detailing and look at it, sort of real time, if you will, and then be able to take this over to somebody. In addition, I can also automate any one of these reports, for example, to automatically email out, or to save out to a particular spot or location. So that's a really, important component to the Pro.Lean strategy, is not only having the visualization elements on the screens, but also being able to gin up, spit out, and actually provide the reporting detailing for you. So the reporting is built into the package. In addition to, the live data here, I've got other, screens that we can take a peek at. For example, we've got some job rates that we could look at. The job rates and the shift detailing as I go through them are very similar in that as I come in here, this again is ginned up and worked up when I go through the wizard to implement the Pro.Lean strategy on a project. But if I take a look, I can actually adjust. So these were implemented when I went through the wizard. I could certainly click on either any one of these jobs in this case, and I can modify that particular job and adjust the value as I see fit. So for example, maybe this particular job has changed. I need to adjust the ideal run rate because I have a much larger situation. I could also add a new job in here for maybe the same thing, big boxes, but it's going to be a different job code that's coming in, right? So I can implement these on the fly. In addition to, when I go through the wizard, these are things that I am populating in, and I can add them as I go here. So if I close this and go back, it's very similar in terms of the job rate with, recipes and shifts as well. So again, if I click on any one of these, I can go in, and the job rates, the recipes, and the shifts, as you notice when I go through the wizard, again, are all things that I would set up, but that doesn't mean I can't come in here and I can't modify on the fly as perhaps other recipes are added to your application. Perhaps you have, a variation to your shifts that at first, when you set up the Pro.Lean strategy on your project, you, for example, had shifts that were running Monday through Sunday with, various different start times, and you needed to, again, adjust or modify any one of these, or you needed to add a different shift indication, you can certainly do that. So although these are set up initially, you can always adjust and modify those on the fly as you see fit within the package. And then what's really neat is we do have situations where there are often alarms that obviously, the operators would go in and they would acknowledge, and they're alarms that would attach to a particular reason code automatically, then be acknowledged by your operators. We have the ability with the Pro.Lean strategy to also be able to list lost alarms, right? So these are alarms that have occurred, and we need to tie them to something in order to understand the downtime that we're incurring on each particular piece of equipment. So for example, you'd come in here and you'd select, a particular alarm that occurred. You could come down here then and assign it to a particular downtime group. So perhaps this is due to a material situation. I know that, we had an issue then, and the issue was that we had, some missing caps. They had to be located. It was, the job had to be put on hold. So I'm going to go ahead and assign that. It warns you and says, are you sure you want to do this? Because as soon as you hit yes, it will then remove it from this lost alarm. So what's neat is you're really capturing even not just the automatic or automated components we can capture off of your machine and equipment, but you are allowing for the ability to somebody to come in here and to manually describe any and all of the alarm detailing as it pertains to your equipment, to ensure that your downtime reporting as well as your productivity detailing is captured properly. And then you can also, as you're in here and you're looking at perhaps your live data, you're looking at your screens, you can come in here and you can adjust, some of the settings in here as well as it, again, on the fly. This is all done, with the wizard to start, but you can absolutely adjust these thresholds as you choose on the fly, and then go ahead and close that window to adjust, the initial setup that you may have gone through. Are there any questions at this point, or? Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll describe and show you how I set this up in terms of that productivity. So again, remember and recall that the neat part about this whole package is that you may already have your system, your layout, your visualization going. You probably have some historical data going, but then all of a sudden, or perhaps initially, your customer also needs that, the displaying of their OEs, the KPIs. on the lines for, the various different shifts to be able to see, but you also need that reporting in terms of management and ensuring that you're meeting your orders, right? So the way that this sets up is you probably will initially set up just your simple application, your screens, your visualization. And then what you would do is you would take and pull in that application through a wizard. So let me show you how that's done. All right, so this is actually the Movicon.next software. We highlighted this to you a little bit in our last section that we worked through with you all, where we opened up and created a new project. And again, that's typically where you'd start to set up your visualization, your historical data collection. And then as soon as your customer gets into a situation where you'd want to display some OEE and KPI information, you can simply go into this Pro.Lean wizard over here. And the neat part, oh, go ahead.
The demo is still showing on the screen, the demo project.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
No worries.
Appreciate you letting me know. I clearly didn't show my screen. I showed the application. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. How's that? That look okay?
Yeah, now we see the editor. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Scott. All right. So this particular editor here, again, we have, just a simple creation of an open project. I also really like the project wizard to get started. Again, that's your visualization. That's how you're going to set up your project to start. Once you have a project, you may then want to apply the OEE KPI wizard, if you will, to it, which is called the Pro.Lean wizard. So if I simply click on this Pro.Lean wizard so that I can apply this to a particular project that I already have, and of course, true to form, it jumped on my other screen. So let me pull that over for you. Oh, come on. All right, are you guys seeing that wizard okay, Scott? Did I share the appropriate?
Yeah, there's the wizard. Yep.
Great. Okay. Really critical that you guys see this, because this is really the secret sauce and really what makes it easy. So it doesn't mean that you guys can't go in and implement certainly the, equations, the visualizations, the reporting needed to do this yourself. But this really saves you a whole lot of time when you already have the application written, you have your tags, your variables being collected, coming in to this visualization package, and you're able to then use just a really quick, simple wizard on that project. So the key is you go in and you go ahead and select the project path to your project that is existent that you want to then implement a strategy to that would enable you to see very quickly, serve up the downtime, the productivity capability, right? So you'd select that project, you go ahead and hit next on this wizard here. You then would select your SQL server. You may have one or multiple that you're pointing to. I'm just keeping it local for simplicity here. And you'd create a database that is tied to that if that's not already created, because perhaps you have an existing application. You don't already have this database as I do because you haven't already run this. You can also, of course, create that database. So there's a button down here that enables you to create a database on the fly. And that, of course, that database that I'm referring to is where we're pulling to and from in terms of being able to represent the productivity, the OEE detailing and that sort of thing. We'll go ahead and hit next here. And as we go through this wizard, you see that I'm going through the various different steps. It's going to then ask you questions as you go along that you'll fill in terms of the various detailing that we need to accurately produce the downtime detailing, productivity, everything that is tied into this Pro.Lean strategy. So for example, on the very first one, we defined the units of measure based on the plant or perhaps your piece of equipment as it pertains to your application. So for example, I have a BT name indicating bottles. BX is going to indicate boxes. Perhaps I want to add in here another, unit of measure, if you will, that is going to be perhaps my crate. So we'll just call it CR perhaps, and we'll call this crate, right? So we also have crates full of boxes that are perhaps full of bottles, right? So we have various different units of measure at the facility. Go ahead and save that change. Again, you can keep adding as you need there, okay? Go ahead and hit next here, and we have the next step in the process is to configure the resources that you want to monitor, or basically the specific parameters that are important to your process that are, the items that you're going to be counting. So for example, we're going to obviously be counting those bottles, and we're going to be counting the boxes that come off the wrapper. And then remember, in the last screen, I added a crate, right, that contains, the wrapped up units. And so maybe I want to not only count my boxes, but I also want to count the number of crates, because I happen to know that every crate I get out of my process here is going to equal X amount of dollars to my bottom line, right? So I might even do, M2 palletizer or pallet, let's say, and we'll call this a pallet of stuff or a crate, right? Whatever makes sense. And, we'll tie this to a particular count logic, right? So this is total good or total scrap or good scrap, right? So this is going to be equal to my total good as I get them out. And then it's going to, as it relates to my crate and my input unit of measure, right? So I'm just selecting as I go across the screen here as it pertains to the item that I am tracking through my process. I would then, of course, want to make that active, and we could save that change, okay? Again, I can continue to add to that. If I go to the next step here, we're going to be capable of adding in recipes and jobs. You now get the trick here in terms of additions. You keep adding in and adjusting as you see fit for configuring your possible recipes now after the jobs as soon as you're done with this. And keep in mind, you can be exporting and importing these particular items here with this wizard. And so as you go through, you then complete and finish that. And what happens is it actually serves up automatically for you within that project as you run it then, this Pro.Lean component that we are showing off to you. So this particular Pro.Lean component then takes into account all of the items that you put in order to display your live data, your productivity, and your downtime detailing as it relates to the items you put in. Keeping in mind that you can add more on the fly, you don't have to go through that project wizard again. And I think the only last thing I want to do is just highlight very quickly for you that
Kelly, we're still seeing the wizard. I don't know if that was what your intention was.
Oh, well, that's okay. I'm going back to the wizard.
Okay.
I think because the wizard pops up, it holds attention. So you'll recall from the live demo that, this particular wizard feeds all of that detailing. But remember in that after we completed the wizard and I showed you that live data, remember that I had the ability to go back and to add, to adjust, for example, my recipes, that sort of thing. The last thing I want to show you is if I just simply hit my F1 on my keyboard, keeping in mind that I have a live help file. I know that in our chat window, I think Brian was kind enough to make sure to populate that in the chat window for you. But remember that our help is online. It's very quick and easy to get to. because I hit F1 on the Pro.Lean wizard, you'll notice that it takes me through and it would explain every one of these steps that I'm going through as I go through it, so that I have an example as well as detailing on each one of those. Gives me examples as to what I may want to set up in here, and how I would set that up, as well as, you know, cautionary detailing if it was important. And that's what I have for you. Any questions that popped up as I was going through there?
Sorry, I was on mute. I don't think I see any questions there. Jennifer, were there any questions that came through directly to you?
I'm not seeing anything.
Okay,
Great. Well,
awesome.
that's hopefully we answered all that you guys had. And again, you know, be sure to reach out. We're happy to show you items, and we certainly offer the ability to jump on with myself or any one of our application engineers that, as you can see, have a lot of time with this product.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kelly. That's fantastic. Again, I did include a link to our resources page. Has access to the help file that Kelly popped up there at the end. It also has links to download the files that Scott went through, as well as the Pro Energy add-ons. If you do have any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to your contact with any of our companies. There's links on that resources page as well. If there are any follow-ups or you want help with a direct project, we'd be happy to jump in one-on-one with you as well. If there aren't any other questions, I'm not seeing any pop up. We'll look forward to seeing you guys in a couple weeks to dive into the Pro Energy add-on feature that we've been discussing. Thanks for everybody's time, and have a good Cinco de Mayo, I suppose. Maybe some margaritas and tacos are in your future.
There you go.
Talk to you guys all soon.
Thank you.
Everyone.